So at the outset, I am really grateful to organizers, Dr. Saurabh, very good friend of mine. It is always heartening and it is always a pleasure to be part of ISA activity. We actually have planned ISA MISACon this year, but because of COVID, we couldn't make it. I am really grateful to all the ISA, Maharashtra ISA team members. Starting from Dr. Kaur, to Manisha Katikar Madam, Cham sir. It is really a wonderful experience when we do it at Maharashtra ISA level. Today the topic given to me is rescue blocks in upper limb with ultrasound. So greetings to you from. I'm still struggling. I'm sorry.
Sir, click on the presentation screen and then you can move.
Okay, I can do it. So, greetings to you all from Ruby Hall Clinic. It's a 750 bedded multi-speciality hospital. We have regional anesthesia fellowship, and we have now 3 students every year, 2 from MUHS and 1 from AORA fellowship. My disclosures: I'll be using some of the images from Human Anatomy, Frank Natter, Hedzik's Regional Anesthesia, Color Atlas, David Brown, some published articles and research work and videos from my department. Today we are talking about ultrasound, and even I was listening to Dr. Shubda Deshmukh madam. She was highlighting on importance of ultrasound. So those of us who are not into use of ultrasound, this is the first slide where everyone can read Fed EX. But if I ask you where is a pointer, where is an arrow, so I can show you with the help of my pointer that here the arrow is marked. So this is ultrasound guided block. So when somebody is telling you, somebody is informing you, you develop some sort of vision to identify structures. So what I am trying to share here is, now this is a age old technique with ultrasound guided, block. And I am saying this is bunch of grapes. Now you start seeing bunch of grapes. Otherwise it is all black and white. Now, why we are moving towards ultrasound guided block is because of easy reproducibility. I mean, I have realized this. I am trained in PNS as well as ultrasound guided blocks in my fellowship training. But I could see that my first year resident can do ultrasound guided block with a lot of ease and comfort. So today I'll be showing you some of my scanning videos. So I'll be showing and sharing how the nerve looks. Some of you might not have seen forearm nerve blocks that well. So you have to bear with me. I'll be showing you all my videos. So I have been given this topic, rescue block. This was my topic in 2014 in AORA National Congress at Delhi. And then I was looking at my presentation 6 years back, what I did with my presentation, and now I'm looking back. So I think things have changed drastically. If I have to say and admit, I'm not using rescue blocks because probably our success rate with ultrasound guided block is better, one thing. And secondly, still we are using all these forearm blocks and arm blocks just because we are into site specific analgesia and anesthesia. So what are my indications? I'll be sharing with you shortly. So nevertheless, if at all, once in a while, I do have problems with my block, which is just because surgeon is sitting on your head, or the anesthesia resident or a fellow has missed something and you have some sort of problem. Most of the time my favored technique is conversion to general anesthesia. But if you have better understanding of ultrasound sonoanatomy, you can always do a rescue block. So my preferred rescue block is most of the time an axillary block, because you can see all the median, radial, ulnar, and musculocutaneous, and we just do a rescue block even for thesis. So this is a very well-known ultrasound guided block with around the axilla, and with high definition ultrasound technique and easy reproducibility, and with little practice of 1 or 2 hours, one can train our residents into a very specific and safe delivery of anesthetic. So rescue block most of the time for practical purpose is axillary block, but we are now into more of distal blocks because it is site specific analgesia and sometimes we do use it for surgery as well. So when is the question of rescue block? So I always teach my residents as well as my fellows that after giving a block, please check your block. So this is push, pull, pinch, pinch. So this is biceps muscle, and you check for the flexion movement. And if it is paralyzed, then you have probably musculocutaneous is nicely working. Then this is push. This is push against resistance. This is for mainly assessing the triceps, where you have nerve supply from radial nerve, and if it is not if it is if patient is able to put force, then probably the radial component is missed. This is pinch, pinch, pinch on the ulnar aspect for ulnar nerve and pinch on the radial aspect for radial nerve. So unless we do start and develop habit of assessing our blocks, it is very difficult to end up with starting with a rescue block. Finally, nobody wants that embarrassing situation where surgeon is telling us that patient is shouting and patient is in pain, do something. And I think that is a very difficult situation. It is better we assess our block well before time and then only hand it over to surgeon. So what are the strategies are at my institute? Now we are more into site specific anesthesia and analgesia. Now I have a question, and I think everyone can enjoy the answering this question. Usually, what is our strategy? If suppose this plant is like a nerve plexus, and if we want to water this plant, and water is something called as local anesthetic. So what is our strategy? So we will decide on how much we should water depending on the site. So this is a small plant, and probably you need some little bit of water, and this is site specific anesthesia and analgesia, and everything is fine. But few days back, or few years back, what was our strategy is to just create a tsunami. I mean, this may be an overstatement, but we recollect those days, and even in some places, 40 and 50 and 60 ml of local anesthetic. So, what is the result of this tsunami of local anesthetic? We are of the opinion that somewhere, some point of time, that nerve will be blocked, and you can see how the city is wholly flooded with water. This is the effect of tsunami. So, if you think of those plants are already buried under water, and it will take a lot of time to come out of this drastic situation. So when we put a lot of volume in any plexus block or around the nerve, it can lead to pressure necrosis. It can cause insensate limb, and patient is morbid with paralyzed limb for many days, or at times sometimes block extending up to 36 to 48 hours with paralyzed limb. That is not desirable. So what is the buzzword is loco-regional opioid sparing multimodal analgesia. We always need local anesthetic whenever, local infiltration whenever necessary, regional technique, opioid sparing. And it is not that if I have done a block, so I will not provide paracetamol or NSAIDs to any given patient. Now there is good evidence to suggest that pain chronicization pathways are blocked when we use multimodal analgesia technique. So we do not want our patient to blame us later after 3 years that after that, because we have not treated them for pain, now they are into chronic pain. So this is site specific analgesia. Some 20-30 years back, we were giving more of general anesthesia, then more it was era of spinal and epidural, and now it is peripheral nerve block, and not only peripheral nerve block, it is even distal block. And why we need ultrasound now, already the speakers have nicely highlighted the anatomy. We are in the era of site specific anesthesia and analgesia, and as you can clearly understand, as we move peripherally, as we move more and more peripheral, anatomical variations are much more, and we need to know the exact anatomy before delivering any drug. We do not wish to cause any complication in this area. Insensate limb is a big challenge. Now, I was part of anesthesia intervention for many VIP patients. And I must tell you that this is out of experience that, anybody you talk with about regional technique to a person who is like, when the patient is somebody very VIP, a known surgeon, your colleague, your friend, or trustee in the hospital, what is the most common complaint after you have administered the block? And you have to believe the only question they ask is how long this arm or leg or the part is going to remain numb. So we have really changed our technique, and we do not wish to have an insensate, a paralyzed limb for longer duration. There are case reports where patients were found to have, injuries at for forearm, injuries to fingers, dislocation of shoulders while shifting the patient, and of course the patients are not able to work and they cannot be discharged. So in the era of ERAS daycare, we do not want insensate limb. Now if my surgery is extremely limited to the hand area or base of thumb, why should my musculocutaneous be blocked at a higher level, and why the biceps should be paralyzed if I can really administer, the lateral anti-brachial cutaneous nerve block and provide a site specific analgesia. So you have to understand, whenever you are deciding about strategy, you must need to know a very sound knowledge of anatomy, in a very sound knowledge of what is the surgical incision. Now you must decide beforehand with the surgeon as what is his plan, most of these wrist and forearm surgery before choosing. Sometimes, whenever the patient is taken, I ask my surgeon, please draw the line and where you are going to mark and where you are going to take the incision. So I am exactly aware where is the, so I'm just sharing, we are talking about sites, analgesia and anesthesia. In this COVID era, I couldn't generate a video with isolated nerve block infusion, but today's era of we do use infusion pump and provide prolonged post-op analgesia, which can help in physiotherapy as well. So this was an elbow case, but patient had some bruises and all that, so she could walk with some support. Otherwise, we can really do that surgery and anesthesia in a very planned way. We are in the era of program intermittent boluses. Now these two pumps are available with my institution, and we can not only provide PCEA, perineural infusion, with a push button. It gives a lot of patient satisfaction, and these are the program intermittent boluses. So you need not to give a continuous infusion, but you can just place a 5 ml infusion every 2 hour, 5 ml bolus every 2 hours, and this has been found to be very effective when we go low on concentration and high on volume. So patient have better patient acceptance, and patient do have better quality of analgesia. They accept this technique very well. So what are the key aspects in deciding the block strategy? First, look at the X-ray of forearm, arm, where exactly will be the, discuss about the skin incision, duration of surgery. Now, IVRA, as my previous speaker was describing, it has limitation when the surgery is limited to 45 minutes or maximum 1 hour. But if we have more duration of surgery, like if it is taking more time, then we do need this type of site-specific anesthesia, whether tourniquet is being used or not. So our strategy is, whenever tourniquet is planned, we use a short-acting local anesthetic in the proximal area, maybe an axillary block with or a subclavian perivascular block with only 2% locks with adrenaline, and an isolated radial median or ulnar forearm nerve block depending on the site of surgery. So we are in the era of daycare procedure and early discharge. We do not cause insensate limb. So for understanding anything, even if you are not doing these blocks with ultrasound, I think better understanding and seeing these nerves, you will be much more happy to do it with ultrasound. So anatomy knowledge is absolutely essential. We must know what are these branches of medial cutaneous nerve of forearm, and how the lateral cord and musculocutaneous continues as lateral antebrachial cutaneous nerve, and median nerve and ulnar nerve. So if you are into fellowship training and everything, I mean, most of the favored question by many examiners, they would like to ask what is the exact course, what muscles they supply, how the nerve travels. So this is the course about median nerve. Today I'll be touching more on the clinical aspect. So the radial nerve and its course, I'll be showing you how this nerve looks in forearm and arm, and also about the ulnar nerve. Ulnar nerve has got good amount of muscular supply in the hand. Why we should know about all these nerves and their course? Because there are anatomical variation, and there is something called as osteotome, myotome, dermatome. Very often we deal with incisions. We only look upon the dermatomal aspect of these things. I mean, even Phadke sir has also nicely highlighted as what is the cutaneous innervation. So we must know what is on the medial side, what is on the lateral side, the base of thumb, and if in a carpal tunnel release at the wrist. So we must be very sure as. So here is a quick revision for all of you. Now, whenever you have a patient, first ask where will be the incision. Now think of base of thumb. Now, base of thumb has a radial supply, it has a musculocutaneous supply, and it has a median nerve supply. Now, think of a incision like carpal tunnel release. Again, you have ulnar, you have musculocutaneous. Most of the time, musculocutaneous is very much responsible, and again the median nerve. Now, think of index finger. Now, again, how the supply is, or all three nerves. If musculocutaneous is not dealt with, then there is a problem with tourniquet. As far as medial antebrachial cutaneous and medial cutaneous nerve of arm, if you have done an axillary, most of the time the drug seepage does happen, and these both nerves are nicely covered. But musculocutaneous aspect we have to cover very discreetly, so that the lateral antebrachial cutaneous is covered. Coming to the osteotomal supply, we need to know what is the osteotomal innervation, because as the surgeon is cutting through after skin incision, there are muscles, and then they will be hitting the periosteum. So unless we are aware of all the three, our block will not be perfect. So myotome also, the muscle supply, and sir has nicely shown, Phadke sir has nicely shown what is the end motor response. So now this was another important paper where it has compared whether we have done a circumferential LA placement and a non-circumferential LA placement. So in this study, it was found that whenever the nerves with nerve block was given with ultrasound and the drug spread was circumferential, then it has a faster onset of action, and it is more complete sensory and motor block. So when we do block with PNS, we cannot be rest assured that it is a circumferential spread, and we really have to depend more on volume, usually 6 to 8 ml. But with ultrasound, we can go low on volume to 3 to 5 ml. This was a wonderful review article by Herman and Kingjin Chin, and it has covered the various aspects. Please go through that article. This is another interesting article from 2017. Now, I was talking about site-specific anesthesia and analgesia. So this is a potential implication of thumb-based surgery. So thumb-based surgery, even as we all know, even Phadke sir has also highlighted that we need a superficial radial, a median nerve, and a lateral antebrachial cutaneous nerve. So basically, it has a radial branch, a median branch, and a musculocutaneous branch. Now, if I do an axillary block, definitely I'm going to paralyze the biceps. Whereas if I am doing a site-specific block, I can selectively block the branch, the terminal branch of musculocutaneous below elbow, and which is lateral antecubital antebrachial cutaneous nerve. So also the radial nerve, as it moves below elbow, it divides into superficial and deep branches. So we can do a selective superficial radial nerve branch. So what is the advantage of that? So deep radial nerve branch is spared, and therefore the extensors, mainly they receive the motor supply is mainly from the deep branch. So extensor component of the forearm is not compromised. So we will have a very site specific analgesia, as well as without compromising the motor aspect with extensors as well as the bicep muscle. So this is the way forward how ultrasound can help us. So median nerve block, we have already seen the anatomy. The nerve is medial to the artery, and here you can see, but again it can be confused with the palmaris longus. You can see it on ultrasound, the honeycombing, and you can trace the nerve much more distally. The muscle will appear as muscle when we do scanning near the wrist end, and the nerve will continue to remain nerve. So this is how we differentiate. But there are anatomical variations in this area as well. So how we do the scanning aspect is I'm just showing in the forearm level. So you can put the probe in the cubital area. You identify where is the orientation marker, and accordingly you mark it on the screen of the patient, and you start scanning it downward. Mainly, you can look at the vascular aspect as well as once you see any vessel, you can always put a Doppler and check how the vessel is pulsating. Now, the nerve is usually on the medial side, but there are one or two cases where it can be on the lateral side as well. So, if you are not very sure, you can definitely use a dual method and can stimulate this nerve at this level. You can do in plane or out of plane technique and block the median nerve. So, median nerve here is seen as a honeycomb pattern. Now, when you block the median nerve here at the forearm level, then there will not be any blockade of flexor digitorum superficialis and flexor digitorum profundus. So patient will be able to flex his finger if we block median nerve at forearm level. But if we go at elbow level, then all the flexor muscles of fingers are also compromised. So this technique is very useful when surgeon is saying that they want to do some tendon repair in the hand area, and they want to see intraoperatively the flexion movement. So we can provide site specific anesthesia without compromising the motor function. So you hear again the honeycomb. Now here, as the nerve moves more in the mid forearm, it lies between flexor digitorum superficialis and flexor digitorum profundus, and that honeycombing you can see. So you can really produce site specific anesthesia, and patient can actually flex fingers intraoperatively because we are blocking it below elbow level. You need to know what is the exact surgery when the plan is discharged, and even the intraoperatively, if patient is able to see the stitches and how the tendons are connected nicely, it causes some sort of positive reinforcement, and patient continues to do physiotherapy. Also, patient can understand what surgeon is saying, and they can actually follow the advice of surgeon as regard to physiotherapy during the surgery itself. So after the median nerve, I'm going to radial nerve. Radial nerve can be blocked at again in arm, forearm, and the prominent place is mainly in the arm area where the probe is placed between the common extensor tendon and the biceps muscle. So here you can see the common extensor tendon and the biceps muscle. So you can see the radial nerve nicely there. So again, radial nerve, if you trace really distally, roughly 5 centimeter above the anatomical stuff box, it divides into cutaneous branches, and so you can trace the radial nerve, the superficial branch, only to that level. Below that, it will be the cutaneous branches, so you cannot block it at that level. It is more of a local infiltration. So this is how the radial nerve divides and it forms multiple branches. So it is again challenging when we are doing a wrist block. So wrist block has to be done little above, already it has been covered. The beauty with ultrasound is you can block all these nerves at any level depending on where they are best seen. You can take care of all the anatomical variations. You can actually do conservative needling and see to it that nerve is not damaged. So this is the radial nerve, and that's the common extensor tendon, the lateral aspect, and the biceps. So this is the groove which is being. So this is how I'll be just showing how we do. So I'll be showing first in the arm area. So just at this level, the nerve is about to divide into superficial and deep. So if you place it at elbow or just above elbow, you see nerve more or less in a elongated cylindrical shape where it is about to divide. The upper part is the superficial aspect, and the below part is the deep branch. So superficial and deep, it divides into two. So if you trace it still distally, you can selectively block the superficial part when it is, say, surgery for the base of thumb, and you can spare the extensor muscles of forearm, which are not necessarily, because it is not at all necessary to block this. So it is a site specific approach. So you need to identify the nerve very clearly, try to trace it. So if you have ultrasound, even tomorrow, you can just play with that equipment. You do not need a volunteer. You can scan your own hand and see how the nerve is behaving. So you can see how the nerve, it appears more of a elongated structure, and then how it tends to divide. So this is the deeper aspect, and this is the superficial part. So that whole is the radial nerve. Now, when we do the radial nerve block at above elbow, it is on the lateral aspect. But this is a little tedious process. People try to avoid this because needling becomes tricky if you put the hand in this position. So the classical sign when you put it in this area is you see a humerus, which is hyperechoic, and just by the side of humerus, a glistening structure is seen as a radial nerve. So you can see the radial nerve here. That's the radial nerve, and you can see the radial nerve here as a glistening structure. Now, sometimes the nerve can be there is some phenomena called as anisotropy, so it can appear disappear. So you have to adjust the probe and get rid of this artifact so that nerve is seen distinctly, and you can block this at this level before it has divided into superficial and deep branches if you really wish to block all the extensors of forearm as well. So we avoid all these because we do not wish to block unnecessarily when it is not required. So for tourniquet and all that, we have already done a local anesthetic block with short acting drug, and we can go with a long acting ropivacaine or levobupivacaine for post-op analgesia with less concentration. So functional activity is still maintained. So that was all about radial nerve. Now I'm coming to the ulnar nerve block. Now ulnar is a very superficial nerve. It is nicely seen. It can be blocked at multiple level. What is the recommended is a forearm block. Now one word of caution, which was already highlighted, it should not be blocked near the bony prominences of olecranon, which can lead to ulnar nerve entrapment neuropathy. So even though the nerve is highly superficial, it is not desirable to block it at that level. So the good thing about ulnar nerve and the median nerve here are they are always accompanied with some arterial landmark. Median nerve is easy to identify, but with ulnar, you just place the probe over the ulnar artery at wrist level, and then try to trace it up. So you can easily identify the ulnar artery, which is nice and pulsating, and just medial to the ulnar artery is the ulnar nerve. So you can see the honeycombing structure, and that's the ulnar nerve. You can trace it up. It is actually, this anatomical relationship is quite nice. The brachial artery divides into two branches, and as it divides, it continues, the ulnar nerve continues to accompany the ulnar artery, and so you can trace it more or less quite higher up this relationship in the forearm. So you can block this ulnar nerve either in mid forearm or even little higher up. Now again, ulnar nerve. Now some people do believe in paresthesia technique and other things. I need to tell you that it depends on the motor and the sensory component of a given nerve. If the nerve is more motor, then it will not have paresthesia. So for paresthesia, the nerve needs to have more of a sensory component. Actually, this is okay with these rescue blocks because they have both motor and sensory. But when it comes to other nerves and other places, we need to think of this as well because it can be traumatic. So again, here you can see just by the side of artery, you can put a Doppler. You can see sometimes there are one or two articles documenting other vessels as well present on the by the side and branches. The ulnar nerve very rarely can also be on the lateral side of the artery. This is an anatomical variation. So you can see the ulnar nerve nicely. If you wish to use a dual mode, you can stimulate it and see, and you can have good result. So now what I'm trying to show you is the arm scan. So we have seen in axilla, the axillary artery. So at 3 o'clock position, 6 o'clock position, and 9 o'clock position, we have all the nerves. But when we come in the lower half, how the nerves pan out. So on the lateral aspect is the radial, just by the side of artery is the median, and on the ulnar side is the ulnar nerve. So here What you are seeing is a ulnar nerve, the honeycombing pattern. And now I am moving my probe in the middle. So you can see the artery. It is about to form a brachial artery now. And just by the side of artery, you can see median nerve very nicely. And still more laterally. Now, if I am moving my probe, still more laterally. So you can see this is in the middle. This is more on the ulnar side. Now I have moved in the middle to see median nerve, and now still more laterally to identify, still more laterally from the midline to still more laterally is the radial nerve. So they really fan out and they supply all these structures. So you need to know, and depending on the type of surgery, whether you want to block the given muscle, you can decide. So this is the artery, and by the side is the median nerve. Now I'm moving my probe laterally. So you can see as the probe just above the humerus, and you keep on scanning more on the lateral aspect. So here you can see again a glistening structure. Here you can see a glistening structure which has started appearing, and that's the radial nerve. So here you can see the radial nerve nice and clear. Again, as I was describing you about the anisotropic effect. So this was the little bit of anisotropy, but you can again stimulate it if you wish. But radial nerve is nicely seen here, and you can use it to block it at this place. Another aspect of blocking what I was trying to share is the musculocutaneous. Now, musculocutaneous is a very notorious nerve. There are anatomical variation, though we look for landmarks like coracobrachialis and all that. So, musculocutaneous nerve is nicely seen till mid-humerus level. When we can trace it down, and then it continues as a lateral anti-brachial cutaneous nerve of forearm. So it constitutes around 70 to 80% of tourniquet pain. So if you are planning to put tourniquet, never miss this star-shaped, nicely seen, musculocutaneous nerve. Musculocutaneous nerve also is very responsible for all the wrist surgery, whether it is distal radius pinning or even carpal tunnel release, and it has got nerve ramification and very rich nerve supply in that area. So we cannot forget musculocutaneous nerve. So what is our experience? Now this was one patient was posted for trigger finger, and we have used an isolated forearm ulnar and median nerve block, and we have placed a glow tourniquet. Now after the trigger finger release, when the patient was asked to move his finger, patient is able to flex. Now, this is isolated nerve block used for surgical anesthesia, and there is no motor loss because we have blocked both the ulnar and the median nerve in forearm level. And glow tourniquet can be applied for 10 minutes. Surgeon just took almost 10 minutes, and patient could tolerate it well. Again, it is supplemented with multimodal analgesia. So this type of tendon fixation and physiotherapy and how much is the degree of trigger finger release can be very well assessed with this isolated nerve block. And as we have used ropivacaine, it has produced good post-operative analgesia as well. So, it can be used even for site-specific surgical anesthesia. Now, word of caution, when it is site specific, all the time we cannot go for site specific. Suppose there is amputation of finger. Most of us would think of using a digital block. But word of caution, when we do a digital block, the vessels are very nearby and also the nerves are very close. So instead of giving a block which can invariably or very high chance of damaging all these vessels, which can affect the reimplanted finger or affect the flap. So cross finger flap and all that, we should be very careful. And as far as possible, consider forearm nerve blocks for, whenever there is a phalangeal reimplantation or thumb or finger reimplantation. So what are the recent advances? So recent advances are nowadays we are doing lateral anti-brachial cutaneous nerve arm, forearm blocks, and we can also block a medial anti-brachial cutaneous nerve arm. Also the posterior cutaneous nerve of. So this is posterior anti-brachial cutaneous nerve. So these are just images. I am just showing you to scan where I am using this. Sometimes for elbow surgery. So you can see over the humerus, there is a radial nerve, and just above the radial nerve, this is again the posterior antebrachial cutaneous nerve, which is a branch of radial. And again, if you scan distally, it divides into two. So I'm just showing a scanning video how we can do it, because it's not very difficult. Nobody has taught us, but it is actually very easy. You can, so instead of giving a local infiltration, that is fine. But if you want to do a dedicated block, the nerve is quite deep. So here you can see the radial nerve first, and as the radial nerve, you can identify the radial nerve. This is the radial nerve, and it has divided. So if we scan it, initially they were close, and now if you scan little bit distally, the posterior antebrachial cutaneous is separated, and you can block this, which supplies the cutaneous innervation. So we can have a site-specific analgesia. Again, lateral antebrachial cutaneous nerve. Now, this is very important for wrist surgeries where we do not wish to block musculocutaneous at higher level, which can lead to flexion problems. Patient will not be able to flex because biceps is paralyzed. Here you can see the important landmark is the cephalic vein, and a nerve is just adjacent to the cephalic vein. So how we do it? The procedure is very simple. You have to palpate for the tendon of biceps. That's the tendon, and just lateral to it, you have to place the probe and move in the lateral direction and try to identify a vein which is quite consistently present, and that is just by the side of vein you can administer the local anesthetic. So are you sure that this is vein? Vein is compressible? Yes, we can see it on ultrasound. If we are not sure that this is vein, on the medial side of the vein, we have lateral antebrachial cutaneous nerve. So this is the terminal branch of musculocutaneous nerve. And if we block the nerve at this side, just by the side of vein, we can actually avoid biceps getting paralyzed. So this is site-specific analgesia. Medial antebrachial cutaneous also can be blocked in the same way, where it is the nerve adjoining the basilic vein. Again, what we see here is a brachial artery, and by the side of that is a basilic vein. So I'll just show you a very simple scanning video, but it has to be done above elbow. So what we see here, the basilic vein. As we have above elbow, we can see the artery, and then we also can see the basilic vein, and just by the side of basilic vein, so here again you can see the vein is getting compressed. So this is the basilic vein which is getting compressed, and that's the artery. So as we identify the basilic vein just by the side of artery, usually the medial to artery is done. So I'm almost done with my presentation. So I'm just trying to highlight about the site-specific analgesia and anesthesia, which is very beneficial for our patient. We do not want to, this slide is showing the anatomical variation as how the lateral cutaneous, the terminal branch of musculocutaneous can have various variable sensory distribution, and how median and superficial radial can also have variable sensory innervation. So these are mapped. Now, one last word about, as our theme today is beyond brachial plexus. So there is something called as Valent method, which is wide awake local anesthesia and no tourniquet technique. This was described by Donald Lalonde, and it was in 2015. What Professor Donald did is the use of local anesthetic infiltration, and his idea of using wide awake local anesthesia and no tourniquet technique is, he said, just compare it with that of a dental chair anesthesia. Now, dentists are infiltrating so much of local anesthetic into our teeth, and there is no sedation, there is no IV access, there is no motor paralysis, and we are walking off home, no nausea, vomiting. We do not ask for, dentist is not asking for any X-ray, ECG, or CBC. It is highly cost effective. And so Valent technique is very popular amongst European surgeons, where it is being used for AP fistula, forearm, and wrist surgery. Even the effect is extrapolated to breast lumpectomy. So the only negative or the flip side is it can more injections are required and patient may not like it. But it is more or less when done it with proper care and good knowledge of Sona anatomy and anatomy, you can do it very well. So this is again an article in 2018 where Valent was used for for even open fractures, and I think somebody has to mute somebody speaking. Yeah. Yeah. So this is Valent infiltration for carpal tunnel release, and how the local infiltration needs to be done. This is described in the article. Again, Valent solution for debutante's contracture release and trigger finger release. So it can be done in a very scientific way. So in summary, site-specific analgesia and anesthesia is the way forward. We are in the era where we want to combine short-acting local anesthetic for proximal blocks when we are planning to use tourniquet, which can be followed by isolated nerve blocks for long-acting local anesthetic. Isolated nerve blocks with or without continuous catheter is the way forward. Less motor blockade, early mobilization, faster getting back to work. Insensate limb is only for very brief duration with short-acting local anesthetic. Useful in doing long duration surgeries, and intraoperative functional assessment for tendon repair can also be done. Patient safety, less vascular puncture, circumferential spread, faster onset, because we are seeing it under vision, so we can achieve all three. There is less chance of pressure necrosis of the nerve because we do targeted delivery, and we are low on concentration and volume. It has better patient satisfaction. My acknowledgement to my department, and I'm grateful to my consultant, Dr. Rajendra, and resident to help me in creating good videos. So last slide, what is the way forward? You can see a pump here with program intermittent bolus, and patient is absolutely functional, playing chess and at home. This is daycare, and this is what we want, an absolutely pain-free patient. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Hello, delegates, could you please mute your voices? It's very disturbing.